You are listening to Dove Valley Deep Divers with Erick Trickel
and Lance Sanderson.
Ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again.
On Overtime Media.
And it looks like we are live. Got to wait for Big Boy Bawana Beast, John K. MHH to come back, make sure that we have the Facebook group, and it looks like we're good to go. Thumbs up, green check marks all the way across all platforms. Mile high hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. I'm your host, Lance Sanderson, and joining me, as always, is my good friend and colleague. He's your Denver Broncos insider and Mile High Huddle senior NFL draft analyst, the one and only Erick Trickel. Erick, man, I can tell you right now, it feels like Alaska in Wyoming right now. It's very, very cold. There's a lot of snow on the ground. Roads are slick. It's not necessarily very fun to go outside. So for me, kind of miserable. Erick, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm enjoying since you mentioned weather, wonderful 21 degrees outside right now. And my office feels like it's negative 30.
Yeah.
I don't know why my office is always cold. And like, I remember when we first started doing these lives, I had such an issue because I would walk out and my feet would be feetsicles basically. But weather here has actually been really nice. We've gotten a little bit of snow. Roads aren't too bad, not super slick or anything. They're brining the roads and everything like that, which is actually doing great this year. But yeah, other than that, everything's going good. Everything's going great. Excited for Christmas next week.
Yeah. And
trying to get everything finished for that and whatnot. So just real quick, everyone who's watching, we will not be here next week. We won't be live on Christmas. So actually, when we will see you next will be next year. It'll be 2021.
Technically, and also, haven't necessarily run this by you. I'm going to run it by you live. Last year, we did our New Year's show. What was your favorite Broncos moments? We're going to tease this just a little bit. What was your favorite Broncos moment over the last year? So we'll get back into that here in just a little bit. But man, it's been kind of rough. We've got a lot of snow up this way right now. Well, really not a lot, just a couple of back-to-back skiffs that have made everything really slick and kind of miserable. It's not easy to drive a semi when there's a solid sheet of ice on the highway, and that's kind of unfortunate. But no, everything's going good up this way. Really excited for Christmas, really excited to go see my folks again and hang out with those guys. But more than anything, we are excited to talk Broncos football with you, specifically regarding Drew Lock. And you guys know we've had some pretty – not really
we've
hot
been
takes. Yeah, everyone wants to call
just
us.
To put it bluntly, what everybody called us is we've been haters. Even though we haven't, we'll just go with it.
Yeah, the quotations need to really be thrown out here. But it's going to be a fun show, guys, because we're going to break down what we've seen with Drew Lock over the last few weeks. I had that hot take piece that came out. Not really a hot take. It was just a really solid opinion, in my particular opinion, that kind of said that Drew Lock wasn't necessarily the guy. And based on what we've seen before in his first, 14 or 15 starts, we're going to start 15 now. So prior to the Kansas City Chiefs game, he had not shown the kind of growth that we needed to see from him. But if you go back and take a look at the tape and you kind of see what's going on with him, yeah, there is incremental growth that we are going to kind of break down for you guys tonight. And also, what does he need to do over the next 3 games to close out the season to kind of stave off this conversation of, is Drew Lock the guy or not? If the Broncos need to bring in another quarterback for some competition, or maybe they even need to move on from Drew Lock. But guys, before we get going, first things first, you guys follow the show at DVDD_pod on Twitter. It's the easiest way to keep up with what's going on with the Dove Valley Deep Divers. Also, while you're at it, follow me at Sanderson MHH and for Erick at Erick Trickel. Guys, I am like 65 followers short of getting to the 1,000 mark. I'd like to get that done prior to the first of the year. I'd really appreciate that if you guys would follow me at Sanderson MHH. Also, while you're at it, follow at Mile High Huddle. It's the easiest way to keep with what's going on at milehighhuddle.com. All of your favorite Mile High Huddle personalities, Nick Kendall, Carl Dumler, Chad Jensen, Zach Kelberman, Bawana Beast needs to put an article up here too. Come on, John, get going with that. Anyways, also gentle reminder, guys, head on over to huddleuppod.com. Get your merch, get yourself a hat, get yourself a t-shirt, coffee cup, face mask. There's a hoodie, a onesie for your baby, anything to suit your fancy. Our Facebook users, go to facebook.com/Mile High Huddle, click the blue Become a Supporter button, become a supporter of Mile High Huddle. And if not, the 3 easiest things you guys can do to help support the show, help support the channel, help support Mile High Huddle in general. Wherever you guys are at, wherever you guys are watching, subscribe to Mile High Huddle, like the video that you guys are watching, share it if you love it, get it in front of as many Broncos fans as humanly possible. And as always, guys, our last order of business here is we want to push you guys over here just a little bit to sportsbetting.com. Sportsbetting.com. They offer sharp odds and a low juice. They have in-house bookmakers. They're not a third-party provider of odds. They have the reduced juice, which means they have the best prices. They have hassle-free bonuses with a one-time rollover, meaning the bonus money is yours after the first time that you bet it. Other sites range from 5 to 30 times. They have 24/7 live customer support, and there's always a real person inside the United States. You're going to get somebody that's going to be able to talk to you, and they're going to be able to communicate the issues you have. If you have any kind of issues with them, their customer support service is just great, man. They do a really good job, and it's an American. It's somebody you're going to be able to talk to and understand and not have any issues with it, with that kind of things. But here's the kicker, guys. At sportsbetting.com, you guys get a 100% risk-free week of sports betting up to $1,000. Not just one bet, but all of your bets. You play for a week, and if your losses exceed your winnings at the end of the week, sportsbetting.com will cover 100% of the difference up to $1,000 with a one-time rollover. So, guys, head on over to www.sportsbetting.com/Mile High Huddle. That's sportsbetting.com/Mile High Huddle and capitalize on that risk-free week of sports betting.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Man, it feels nice to celebrate a Broncos win. And what better way to do that than with Coors Hard Seltzer? Because this is not your average seltzer, gang. Rooted in Coors' long history of sustainability is a brand inspired by a generation that wants to do good in the world with a mission to restore America's rivers. Never before has it been so easy to make a difference, make an impact, be an activist, and never before has it been so enjoyable. Coors Hard Seltzer is launching the world's easiest volunteer program. Whatever you're doing, by simply cracking open a can of Coors Hard Seltzer, you're volunteering. Our waterways, gang, are at risk. 80% of America's rivers, they're drying up. But through a partnership with Change the Course, Coors Hard Seltzer is helping to protect and restore America's rivers. Each 12-pack of Coors Hard Seltzer, here's how it works, restores 500 gallons of fresh water to U.S. rivers and the communities that depend on them. And the results, 1 billion gallons of water restored to 16 river basins across the U.S., including the Colorado River. And that's just year one. You get 4 refreshing flavors, 1 cool cause. Enjoy naturally flavored black cherry, mango, lemon lime, or my favorite, grapefruit, and the specs are in, gang. Coors Hard Seltzer is 4.5% ABV. And Zach, it's only 90 calories.
Man, Chad, I am hyped after a big quality Broncos victory. I'm celebrating with my Coors Hard Seltzer. I got my mango flavor. It's my personal favorite. Combining football and Coors Seltzer is the way to go for any football fan, Chad.
So join the world's easiest volunteer program. By simply drinking Coors Hard Seltzer, you can volunteer to restore America's rivers. You buy Coors Hard Seltzer, you help restore 500 gallons of water into America's rivers. It's really that simple. So visit CoorsSeltzer.com to find Coors Hard Seltzer near you. That's CoorsSeltzer.com.
For every 12-pack sold through 8/31/2021, Coors will purchase services from Change the Course to restore 500 gallons of fresh river water. Details at CoorsSeltzer.com. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Fort Worth, Texas.
All right, now, Eric, the biggest thing is, and as we got before we went into our matters of business, is we've been dubbed as these Drew Lock haters, and we've been called a bunch of different names. People would come at us on Twitter and have really kind of criticized us for our takes on what we've seen out of Drew Lock. And yeah, there has been some marginal improvement in his play, and especially you want to go back and watch this Carolina Panthers game over again. And this is probably his best game that he's ever played in a Broncos uniform. Like, quite honestly, he did everything that you and I had said that he was not doing for the majority of the first 13 starts of his career. Now, Eric, I want you to kind of break this down for everybody and just kind of highlight the reasons that we had said that Drew Lock hasn't shown the growth and improvement that we thought he needed to have prior to this Carolina Panthers game, and why we said that he was potentially not going to be the quarterback of the future.
So the first things first is when we talk about progress and development and everything like that, it doesn't mean statistically. Like, that is a weird misconception out there, is that when you talk about a player showing growth and development, it means that it's automatically reflecting in the stat sheet, and that's not always the case. Now, with Drew Lock, there was a lot of issues about his footwork, trying to force throws, not taking what was there at times, being overly aggressive, not playing within the scheme, trying to do too much. All these were big issues, and it led to some really bad play. It led to some really bad interceptions, and just it hurt the Broncos. It's why that there was the doubt that he could be the quarterback of the future. He had to start showing that those issues could be put behind him. And in the Miami game, he still had some hiccups, but he took a step forward. The footwork was still a little messy, but he wasn't forcing things as much. He was trusting what was there. He was trusting his playmakers. Still had a couple costly turnovers, but he stepped up. And then against the Chiefs, again, he played I think this was actually a very solid game overall. Didn't really force much, took what was there, played within the scheme, and just ended up having a good game. Now, the Panthers game, of course, it does need to be taken with a grain of salt because the Panthers secondary is kind of bad. Their top corner, Jackson, right? Dante Jackson,
yep.
Was banged up. He's missed some time with the foot injury. So he was still a little bit banged up. And Corn Elder, their second best cornerback, he only played 4 snaps in the game and left with an injury. So that really hurt the secondary. And Rasul Douglas and Troy Pride Jr. were both corners that, if you guys watched my rookie to watch from last week, as with it being Jared Judy, you'd know that those two have been struggling this year. And Locke was smart to exploit that, but he didn't force things. There were a couple plays where he did, especially the last one where Netane Moody got beat badly by Derek Brown on an inside pressure, and Locke is trying to force it to, I believe, Troy Fumagalli, maybe Nick Manette. I can't remember which one it was. It was one of the tight ends. It got deflected off of Lloyd Cushenberry's helmet, bounced to the air, and fortunately, Melvin Gordon caught it. Fortunately, but it looked like he was trying to force it. So some issues there, but he took that step forward, and this time it actually reflected in the stat sheet. That's great. Eventually, the stats will come, but it's not all about the stats. It's about what's shown there on tape. So improved footwork. I think his best throw of the day wasn't that one of the deep touchdowns to KJ Hamler. It was a deep throw to Jerry Jeudy, where Drew Lock had to throw the ball off balance, rolling out a little bit off a bad platform, dropped it in the perfect position to Jeudy on the outside shoulder, and it hit him perfectly. It wasn't far. It wasn't deep enough where he was putting Jerry Jeudy in jeopardy. It was giving him enough time to secure the ball and get braced for the hit. So it's this progress that we needed to see. And I see somebody in the thing talking about how it takes time. It does, but the thing is you got to show those steps early on, and that's what Drew Lock wasn't doing. Everybody talks about Josh Allen and the improvements that he's had. He was showing those steps forward and progressing as a passer. Didn't reflect on the stat sheet early, but he was showing those signs. Derek Carr, Ryan Tannehill, all these other quarterbacks that took a long time to sit there and become the guy, they were showing the progress and the steps early on to sit there and keep being awarded more time to sit there and have it. So fortunately for Drew Lock, he took advantage with the last 7 games remaining, against the Miami Dolphins and on, to really start putting those steps together. And now he's in a good position to start next year. I think that they will add another veteran to push him, but I think he's done enough so far to have a reasonable shot at being that guy. He still depends on how he does it, closes out the last 3 games of the season, but he's taken those proper steps to be comfortable giving him more time.
The biggest thing, it's just the big inconsistency that you've seen with Drew Lock. And the biggest thing is the inconsistency within the positives. And I'm going to grab this comment here in a second, John, from James. Thank you for grabbing that. I actually saw that. It's the inconsistencies within the positives that you see from Drew Lock, well, within the consistencies of the negative that we've seen over him over the first 14 games of his career. And the way that I want to kind of break this down for you guys is that if you take away, so we've got 14 games right now. If you take away the top 2 games and you take away the bottom 2 games, those are your outlier games. Okay. So you have this game against the Carolina Panthers where it was arguably the best game of his career. Okay, so that's obviously an outlier. You also have the Houston game from last year, which was arguably at that particular point prior to the Carolina Panthers game, the best game of his career. Now, you flip it around to the other side, you have the Kansas City Chiefs game in Kansas City last year in the snow, where that's one of those burn the tape games. We don't care about that. And then the 4 interception game against the Oakland Raiders, or the Las Vegas Raiders, from earlier this season. Everything in the middle there. So even at 12 starts, you say you got 8 starts. There's so much inconsistency there. You have massive amounts of turnovers. There's a lot of bad decisions, a lot of missed reads. There's a lot of times where he's throwing off his back foot. There's a lot of times where he's escaping out of a clean pocket for no reason, not moving through his progressions. These are the things that led me to say that he was not going to become the guy. I'm not going to necessarily eat crow based on this last game. It's one game, and it was against at least a decent defense. It's also against a man coverage defense. Going to this Buffalo Bills game, he's going to have to play against zone, and that's what the Buffalo Bills like to do with their defensive scheme. They play a lot of zone. Drew Lock has struggled against zone because he doesn't read the entire field. Over the last few weeks, we've seen him actually be able to move through his progressions and see most of the field, not all of it. There are times where he will lock onto one read and still just make the most boneheaded decision, because if that one read's not there, he's going to fade to whatever that read is and keep his eyes locked on it. We saw that even against the Carolina Panthers as well. Those bad plays, those inconsistently bad plays, consistently bad plays, have still remained prevalent in his tape. They're now getting lesser and lesser. And we're starting to see that transition from bad to good. Bad process leading to bad results. Now we're starting to see some more good process lead to some bad results, and hopefully that will transition to good process leading to good results. Like the KJ Hamler throw down the middle, that second touchdown pass that Drew Lock threw to KJ Hamler down right down the middle of the field against the Carolina Panthers. Now, there was something else that I wanted to get you to here. Actually, you know what? This is where I was going to pull this up. James Campbell, in his comment, honestly, if Drew Lock showed these performances and process that he did over the past few games earlier in the season, we would not have so many questions over whether he is the guy or not. And this leads to my final point. We're 14 games into this. And Eric, I know that historically speaking, if you're 10 or 12 starts into your NFL career, if you're not showing those flashes of growth, you're probably not going to be the guy. Eric, do you think that based on this last performance alone, and I understand I just said don't think about this one performance, but based over the last 3 performances, 75% completion percentage after going 0 for 6 with an interception against the Miami Dolphins, the decent, if that, game against the Kansas City Chiefs, and then this elite showing that he had against the Carolina Panthers, do you think that incremental growth that he has shown over the last 3 weeks can translate and then continue to build over these next 3 games?
I think he's shown enough to continue to obviously get more time. I think he's shown enough to be confident in him next year, taking that development and taking that time. And I think that at this point, we're still not sure, 100% sure he is the franchise guy, but he's shown enough to sit there and he has that potential to sit there and roll with him. Now, there's a couple comments here that I want to get to. And RipTG Trickel, by the way, you spelled my name incorrectly, and it's there on the screen for you. Says John Elway got at least 5 years of really bad quarterback play. First of all, no, he didn't.
No,
his play was actually solid. The stats weren't great, but his play was solid. Stats aren't play. Stats are the outcome. Second of all, what was his records? I think he went 4-6 his rookie year. Let me see. After that, he went 12-2, 11-5, 11-5. When you aren't playing the best, if you're winning, you get more time. And Charlie Beagle says it was a different game back then. People had patience. That's not true. The patience part isn't true anyways. The different game back then, that is very true. You could roll with a quarterback who was struggling if you had a great team around them. We have seen now that outside of some exceptions, you have to have that great quarterback play if you want to compete for a Super Bowl. Times have changed. That's why the whole John Elway comparison, it's a feeble-minded attempt to try and make a comparison that's not there. It's a bad comparison to make. So just got to be able to just got to stop with that. And then Charlie also had a comment earlier about Jerry Jeudy corkscrewing for the catch I'm talking about. Jerry Jeudy was expecting it on the inside, but Drew Lock was smarter to throw it to the outside boundary because he had the safety coming over the top. And with the safety coming over the top, if he threw it to the inside shoulder, it increased the chance for a potential turnover, and it also put Jeudy in a little bit more danger for it. So put it off to the side on the outside of the outside shoulder, protected Jeudy. It was a smarter play of it.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Yeah, I want to go back. Speaking of the comment section here, I want to grab this from Stu Meat coming in here as always with the super sticker. Stu, we appreciate you, man. How's it going, dude? Thank you guys all for joining in the chat. Charlie, obviously, Brandon Doherty on Facebook, DNV3 as well. Ernie, what's up, dude? It's been a long time since we got a chance to have you live in the stream. Anyways, I haven't seen you comment at least not nearly as much as you used to. It's good to see you, dude. Obviously, we've got Bawana in the house. Kenneth Booker coming in here. Chad Kelly in the house. What's up, man? Let's see. George Marabi. That's a new name for me. George, it's nice to see you as well. Let's see if I can't grab a super chat here. There was a couple of questions that we had coming in here. Got one here from Base Gates. Regardless, we need a high-quality backup quarterback to breathe down Locke's next. Maybe it's Ryan Fitzpatrick. If Locke has a stinker against the Bills, then we'll be back at square one again. And this is actually a good transition into something I wanted to break into here, Eric. Based on what I just kind of broke down with the two outlier games on both sides of the spectrum, pretty much the middle is a lot of mediocre play, some average play. I mean, yeah, there's some flashes in there, but it's more bad than good. If Locke has a stinker against the Bills, is it flipping this conversation back on its head? And what do you expect out of Drew Lock against the Buffalo on Saturday afternoon?
Real quick, I just want to address this because it has to deal with the whole Elway thing. Elway didn't have a great team around him for a long time. That's true, but that's also actually kind of backing my point that I had, is you can't sit there and talk about how John Elway had a terrible team or had terrible stats, have him go 11-5, 12-2, those records, and say that the stats are terrible, so he was having bad quarterback play. So either A, he had a great team around him, which in those early years, he didn't. It really was largely him. He had some talent, but not a lot. But it shows that the stats weren't everything back then, that he was playing better than the stats reflected. I'm glad you said that because that's actually was part of my point, just kind of got missing there. Now, I don't think it flips this conversation back on its head. And the big reason for that is these are the Buffalo Bills, and they actually have a pretty solid secondary.
Yeah.
Some concerns about if they go if they have the pass rush to help out the secondary for Buffalo. Sometimes they can be hot, sometimes they're not. And then Tre'Davious White, he's obviously one to be concerned about. And so I don't think that Drew Lock's going to have, obviously, it was a rare game that he had against the Carolina Panthers. So I don't think he's going to have as good of a game. But I do expect him to do a lot of the same stuff. And it's one of those things where the result isn't going to be what matters as much as how he gets to that result. I think that he will continue to show improvement in those footwork. I think that he's going to sit there and continue to take what's there, not try to force things, wait for those deep shots to open up instead of jumping to them right away. And I think that Pat Shurmur is going to continue using KJ Hamler the correct way.
Thank God. Like, quite honestly, man, we've not seen a lot of the jet sweep motion. We've seen a couple of the reverse plays that we had with KJ Hamler a few weeks ago. And now finally we're looking at KJ Hamler taking the top off of the defense, which is what you have to do when you have a guy with that kind of elite, 4.27, 4.28 speed. He never ran an official 40 at the combine. But at the same time, you could see it on tape. That guy has legit 4.3 at least speed. And we're not seeing any deep shots down the field in one-on-one coverage with him. we're seeing a lot of dig routes. We're seeing a lot of pivot routes and stuff like that. Not a whole lot of crossing stuff. It's so hard to see a guy with that kind of speed and that kind of mismatch ability because of that speed being misutilized in this offense. And it goes to the argument, and I understand where people are coming from with the Pat Shurmur isn't necessarily the guy that needs to be leading this offense forward. I disagree with that. I think that there's a lot of the reason why we are having this conversation with Pat Shurmur and also the same reason we're having this conversation with Drew Lock is because Pat Shurmur was asking Drew Lock to be an NFL quarterback and see the whole field and make his progressions and go through his reads and deliver the ball to the open guys. And now that's the biggest thing. And this is the one thing that I've seen over the last few weeks that has been the most noticeable improvement with Drew Lock. He's not bailing out of clean pockets and just trying to force the ball downfield. He took his shots against the Carolina Panthers, but they were measured. Pat Shurmur opened up the screen game, got Troy Fumagalli involved in the screen game and a tight end screen. They had some other dump off stuff that Drew Lock was finally actually seeing, and he took that advice from Brett Rippon to heart, and he decided that, you know what, I have to play within the scheme. And when you play within the scheme and when you hit the open guy, the offense looks a hell of a lot better than if you were just playing YOLO ball out there. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I had an issue with Drew Lock was because he wasn't doing the things necessary of being a franchise quarterback. You have to be able to identify your pressure schemes coming up the front and help your offensive line protect you. You also had to be able to read the defense pre-snap, understand where some guys are going, and that'll take some time. Especially with Drew Lock, who didn't have to do that back in Missouri. He's got to understand. I mean, yeah, there's going to be some growth there. But the things necessary, like going through your progressions, you understand that this guy here is running this route and there's a route underneath that. I can't take the deep shot every single time. You've got to hit the check down every now and again. You got to hit that safety valve. You got to hit the outlet flat. Like there's a lot of things that Drew Lock was not doing. And now we're finally starting to see him do that. And the conversation has flipped completely on its head. I want to see him do it consistently. That's my big thing. I want to see him turn this into a consistent measure of success. Now, Judah Walker coming in here, and he says Justin Simmons leads the team in interceptions again. What does Simmons have to do to be a ball-hawking safety? I mean, it's pretty obvious right now. He's one of the best safeties in the NFL. He's already a ball-hawking safety. I'm not sure where you're coming at here, Judah. The interception numbers speak for themselves. He's also doing a lot better of a job, especially here lately, of filling in his run assignments. He's doing a great job tackling. His coverage is not quite great, but it's also good enough to be able. And he's taking advantage of the opportunities that are presented in front of him. He's taking those easy turnover plays and he's actually making them and helping this defense continue with that bend but don't break. Yeah, they'll hit a deep shot every now and again, and Simmons might be responsible for some of that. But then he's turning around and making a big play in the red zone, and like he did in the Miami Dolphins game to stave off a comeback attempt from Ryan Fitzpatrick, who we just got done talking about as well. Justin Simmons is one of the best players on this Broncos defense as of right now. He might be the best player on this Broncos defense, and I don't know necessarily what more you want out of the guy.
Yeah, to answer the question about what he has to do to be a ball hawking safety, really that depends on how you define ball hawking safety. Scouts have a very different one. I know mine is probably going to be a little bit different of a definition compared to Lance. And it's not just about the interceptions. It's just about being around the ball consistently. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Simmons, at sometimes his coverage is solid. His coverage can be great at times, but there's sometimes where he's just not in the right position for his coverage assignment, and the ball gets thrown there. And that kind of takes away from the ball hawking safety. And in terms of the interceptions, he very much is a ball hawking safety in that regards of it. And I just don't know. I don't really know. Like some people don't want to use that. I guess I don't know. And then this is a question for me, so I'm going to take it, Lance. Kenneth Booker with the $4.99 donation. Thank you, Kenneth, for that. We appreciate that. He says, if we don't get Farley, what cornerback can trade back for that is close in talent? Sean Wade, Campbell, Vincent Jr. in the 20s range or second round. I think Eric Stokes is probably one of the ones that'd be up there. Sean Wade has had a really rough year this year. I think he probably in the second round, he'd probably be a good target. Campbell, I'm not the biggest fan of. I've really fallen off of his play a little bit. The more I watched, the more I dug deep into him. And Vincent Jr., I think that he's just a little bit redundant with Bryce Callahan, really. Yeah. I think Bryce Callahan is a tremendous slot, and I think that Vincent Jr. is a slot-only cornerback. It just doesn't fit. But J.C. Horn, he's another top corner, but I don't think he's the best scheme fit. There is the other South Carolina corner whose name escapes me at the moment. But he would be a really good scheme fit. I think he's more third round, though. But, I mean, Vic Fangio has shown time and time again that he doesn't just take top-tier talent at corners. He's only drafted 2 defensive backs when he's as a defensive coordinator in the first round, and both of them were more safeties. They were those versatile safeties. Erick Reed and Jimmy Ward were the 2. And he's shown that he'll take a guy a little bit later that's not a top-tier talent at corner that just is a great scheme fit. He's shown that time and time again. And I think that if Farley's not there, I don't think that they probably take corner in the first 2 rounds. I think that if Farley's there, I could see him being that first-round pick because he is such a tremendous scheme fit. Eric Stokes, I could see him being an option as well. But it really just depends on when.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
I'm just so curious as to what happened with Shaun Wade. And I think that a lot of it happened to do with the CV, the Big Ten not wanting to play, and then everybody opting out. And I mean, Shaun Wade was one of those guys that opted out and then opted back in. I wonder if and this is complete and total speculation, guys, so pardon me for this one. I wonder if a part of that with his struggles this year is the fact that it was so uncertain whether he was going to be able to play this year in the first place. And then he opted out and then opted back in. And then also losing Jeffrey Okudah into the first round last year. They lost Damon Arnett as well. I don't know necessarily the rest of the cornerback talent that Ohio State has right now. So Shaun Wade coming back from the up and down offseason that he had, maybe it's not a focus on football. Maybe it's just to protect yourself a little bit. I don't know. So there's some speculation in that. I still, though, I mean, if you want a versatile guy that fits within what Vic Fangio wants to do, he can play on the outside, he can play on the inside. But
the issue is with Shaun Wade, he can't play on the outside. He's shown that this year.
Okay.
That's what the thing was. Last year, he was the nickel corner, and he shined. And he was such a stud, and everybody wanted to see what he can do on the boundary this year. He got put there, and he has some good plays, but he's just getting beat a lot. Like, it's not an issue on if he's not focused or not. It's just him not out there, not being able to handle his level of competition he's facing on the boundary. It's a big issue that I have with him, and it makes me wonder: can he grow on the boundary or not, or is he just going to be a nickel guy? And then somebody else came in and said about Darion Kendrick and really liking him. I really like him as well for Denver. My issue is I think that if Denver goes corner, I think they'll want a guy who isn't super raw, a guy who can come in and be that number one guy right away. And I don't think Kendrick is that. I think Kendrick, he just flipped recently from wide receiver to corner, so he's still very much learning the position. And I think that he's going to be a year or 2, maybe 3 out from being a true number one corner. And that's what Denver's looking for, because I really don't think AJ Bouye is back.
No, I kind of agree with you on that one. Just the whole the contract implications that with AJ Bouye, $13 million is what his cap hit's going to be next year. The suspension to start the season after it carries over. What is it going to be? 3 games, maybe 2. I can't remember exactly the timeline of that. But still, he also missed a lot of time with injury, the inconsistent play. It looked like the secondary was playing a lot better without him than it was with him, because there were times where AJ Bouye was getting picked on. I mean, at the Atlanta Falcons game, the Chargers game as well, he got picked on a lot. Keenan Allen took him to the woodshed a couple times. It's hard to see with that. And with the Broncos not necessarily having a whole bunch of cap space, yeah, they got some room to wiggle with. That $13 million, and if you're trying to get a youth movement on the defensive side of the football, which the Broncos desperately need to do, they've got the youth movement on the offensive side. The secondary right now, obviously you got to re-sign Justin Simmons. AJ Bouye is probably the easiest one on the Broncos defensive side of the football that I could see them moving on from and still being able to at least replicate some of the success that they have had this year by getting younger and going with a cornerback in the draft. Eric, do you agree with that or not?
I agree with that. And Christos goes, I thought we had 3 games left. Why the mock drafting? Well, we're not doing a mock draft. We were asked a question about cornerbacks, so we're talking about it. And Wannabe says that this pod has a focus on the draft. That is true, saying as I am the senior draft analyst for Mile High Huddle. I watch about probably 8 times more college tape than I do of the Broncos.
He actually does.
I scout over 300 players every single year for the draft. That is my focus. So that's why we talk about it a lot. We started this talking about the Broncos. We had a question about the draft. We're going to talk about the draft a little bit, and we still have plenty of time left. It's how it mixes in. It all works together. It's all trying to help the Broncos get to that goal of winning yet another Super Bowl. That's what it's all about, and the draft plays a part of that.
Yes, it does. Brian Greenfield jumping in here on Super Chat, $10 donation. Brian, dude, it's so good to see you back on the show. It really is. It's been a long time since we've seen your name as well. What's up, man? Thank you for joining us tonight. Lawrence Rivera jumping in right behind him with the $5 super. I'd like to see what you guys think about our offensive line and how long we've been working on it forever, and how do we stand? And Locke's age compared around the league, I'm guessing is where you're getting at. The offensive line, quite honestly, I'm really starting to get upset about the struggles of the offensive line. Well, not the struggles, let me put this in air quotes, the struggles of the offensive line, and how this offense has struggled behind an offensive line that has been probably a top 10 unit in the NFL this year. Like, let's just be quite honest. There are some times where the offensive line has struggled in the run blocking category, and I don't think that's necessarily because of the offensive line. I think it's because of the offensive alignment and based on the packages that are out in front, that are on the field. Specifically when it comes to Phillip Lindsay being on the field. Like quite honestly, Melvin Gordon and his ability to pass protect and to catch the ball out of the backfield, there's not the straight design of every time he's on the field, we're going to hand the football off. Phillip Lindsay doesn't offer that. And it seems like right now, especially over the last few weeks, when Phillip Lindsay gets on the field, defense is key on that, and they shut him down. And there's nothing that you can do when you have a stacked box, and players are identifying that and run blitzing to fill those holes. So I think there's a big part in that. However, one thing, and I've gone back to this multiple different times, and Eric, I'll let you take this away for a second so I can pull up this message. The Broncos offensive line, as far as their pass protection, has been like a top at least 12 unit over the course of this season.
Well, I'm afraid to start talking about the offensive line because I might start talking about the draft, and apparently that's an issue. So with the offensive line this year, here I go, some draft talk. The Broncos had one rookie brought in, Lloyd Cushenberry, at a big key place at the center position, replacing a all right but not great, very overrated by Broncos fan, Connor McGovern last year.
Yeah.
And he's having a lot of issues this year. And those issues are affecting Dalton Reisner. They're affecting Graham Glasgow. They're trying to sit there. They're trying to help cover up for issues that Lloyd Cushenberry has, same issues he had in college, and issues that it's just going to take some time to grow and develop out of. And while there have been some flashes of him showing that development, a lot of it is he's just got to go and he's just got to learn some changes in technique, which hopefully Mike Munchak focuses on this offseason.
Yeah.
And then Garrett Bowles, obviously, he had that big step forward. Elijah Wilkinson, he continues to show that he's not a right tackle in the NFL, and I don't know why the coaches keep trying to make him to be one. It really makes no sense to me. I understand at this point they want to try to evaluate, see what they have in him, but it's still weird to me. But it's starting to gel, and I think that the one position or one area that was hurt the most by no offseason and no preseason games was the offensive line, because so much of it is built on chemistry. And then this year they have had issues getting chemistry down because Elijah Wilkinson goes down. In comes DeMar Dotson. Then DeMar Dotson got hurt for a while. Then Graham Glasgow got hurt for a while. And there was rotations there. And they had to throw in Austin Schlottman, who's not good. He's shown he's not a swing guard in this. And I'd be shocked if he's on the Broncos next year, but that's beside the point. So it's just been a lot of things for it. And it's just something that they have to go and just kind of gel all together. And I saw somebody ask about Nathaniel Moody and our thoughts, and he looked really good as a run blocker, but his issues pre-draft were injuries, obviously. But on the field, they came in pass protection, and he showed those issues on pass protection. In that fourth quarter, there were like 3 or 4 pass plays the Broncos had where he allowed a very quick pressure up the middle. Granted, it was against Erick Brown, who was the top defensive lineman last year. And so he's shown that he needs that progress there and that he's just not ready to be a full-time starter yet. Helped out the run game, hurt the passing game. Fortunately, Drew Lock was able to overcome that. So we'll see what's going on. I like where this offensive line's headed. I don't think they need as much help in the draft or in this offseason as others do. I think it's just a matter of getting Chris Cooper and Mike Munchak to sit down with them, make it clear, hey, this is what you need to work on. And I'd use Garrett Bowles as an example. Like, you guys got to take the time on your own as well as with the team to sit there and focus on improving, because that's what Garrett Bowles did. And this is how far that he came along as a player, and try to get that message through, because Dalton Reisner, he's had some rough moments this year. Graham Glasgow, I think he's the one that's impacted the most. Obviously, right tackle, the changes there that they've had to deal with. And then obviously Lloyd Cushenberry, he's the one who's actually trying to help him out the most. So I like where they're headed. They've still got some ways to go about it. And yeah, I think they're for the most part fine with who they have on their offensive line. They could use a swing depth tackle to try to become that they can work on and develop to be that future right tackle going forward.
Well, I understand the future right tackle moving forward, but you guys are also really missing out on something here. And it's a sore subject with Broncos country, especially given the amount of money that John Elway handed him last year in free agency. But Juwan James is going to be coming back. Like this year, yeah, I understand, man. He opted out. He did what was best for his family, and I can't blame him for doing what he thought he needed to do. He's going to come back next year. He's going to have 2 years off. He's going to be fully healthy. He's going to be ready to play, I hope, at least, and hopefully we're not a hangnail away. Juwan James is one of the best right tackles in football, guys. Like, seriously, when he is actually healthy and is on the field, he's a dancing bear. He's good in the running game. His pass protection is damn near flawless. The guy is so good. And that's a big issue what the Broncos have had over the last, 5 years? Quality play on the right tackle position, because Garrett Bowles has not really ever been a bad player. He just has holding penalty issues, and those are all but erased now. And I tweeted this out the other day. Forget Pro Bowl love, like Eric and I were talking about over the course of the summer. Garrett Bowles needs all pro love this year. He has been absolutely spectacular, guys. Juwan James, if you put him in and he plays a full 16-game season, probably not likely, I will admit that. If he plays a full 16-game season, you have your left tackle and right tackle that potentially could be of the future as well, because Juwan James still has another 2 years after this year on his deal. You have solidified the bookends. You have a young stud in Dalton Reisner at left guard. You have a young stud in Netani Moody, who appears to be at least a developmental player and could potentially take over for Glasgow here in the next couple of years. And then Lloyd Cushenberry, who needs some coaching up. This is a young, cohesive offensive line in a year. Guess what, guys? You have a top 5 offensive line. And I found the message that I sent to you guys in the group chat the other day. Just speaking of the offensive line play specifically to this year itself, out of all quarterbacks with at least 348 total dropbacks, which is as many as Drew Lock has over the course of this season, he has the 8th highest time in the pocket of any of those quarterbacks. There's 24 of them, by the way. 2.82 seconds in the pocket from snap to throw. That's the 8th highest. Like, this offensive line is doing a very good job of protecting him. 52.9% of his snaps, the 12th highest of all of these quarterbacks with at least 348 total dropbacks, have at least 2.5 seconds to throw within the pocket. Like, they're doing a great job of protecting him. He just has to be able to work with that protection and then play within the offense and not escape a clean pocket. Like, there's a lot of quality play up front with this Broncos offensive line, and the narrative of they're getting him killed, he's running for his life, doesn't hold water when you put the stopwatch and watch the tape. He's taking this, he's going outside of the play design and trying to extend and play hero ball, guys. This is part of the reason why I have this. I want to wait and see what's going to come out of Drew Lock from here on out. But at the same time, you can't continue to blame the offensive line, who's doing a very good job. They have the number 1 rated left tackle in football right now. Like, it's not the offensive line. The offensive line is doing a great job, guys.
And Brian Greenfield came in with a $5 donation. Will Moody start this week? Is Wilkinson starting this week? If so, why? I think Moody depends on Glasgow's health. I would expect Glasgow to start if he's healthy. And then Wilkinson starting, it's because I think they still believe he can be a tackle. I don't know why. I really don't know. I think they came out and said that Wilkinson's going to stay starting. I'm not 100% sure on that. So
Vic Fangio did say that they were going to roll with Wilkinson as long as he's healthy.
Yeah, I don't know why. And I said at the early of the season, like before Wilkinson got hurt, and you and I actually discussed this on here, as you're sitting there saying that they won't roll with Wilkinson much longer. And I said, outside of him getting hurt, Wilkinson will be the starter.
Yep.
Wilkinson got hurt. They mentioned him, but he's healthy now. He's back to full health. He's a starter again. And then Lawrence Rivera came in with a $2 donation saying, nice insight, Trickel. What about Donald De La Haye? I don't know who that is.
That's
and I saw somebody ask earlier about small school prospects.
I actually got it right here.
If I don't
right here.
Richie Grant, who I also saw earlier saying that he never misses a show. But Richie, didn't you miss last week?
Got him.
But I don't get around to watching small school guys unless they're like superstars, like absolutely killing it, until typically February. It's just so many of the top conference schools and everything like that so many prospects from there that I have to watch. I just don't have time for them right away. I'll get around to them. I'll probably end up watching the game, see if they're worth continuing on, and if not, I'll toss them aside. If so, I won't. So just a quick insight into my draft process about this, since I kind of talked about it earlier, watching over 300 prospects. Originally, my list starts out about what was it, over 2,000 prospects? Wasn't that what it was in like September? I think it was.
It was like 2,200 or something like that. And Eric actually sent it to me, and I couldn't even begin to start breaking this down.
I have to go through, and I have certain standards, I guess would be the way, statistical standards and stuff like that. So with running backs, if they don't have at least 1,500 yards combined in 2 years, then they'd get taken off my list. I saw somebody else ask about Max Borghi, and he fell into that category. He was taken off my list because he didn't meet the minimums that I need statistically to continue watching them. And so on and so forth. And I go, and some of these guys, I watch a little bit of tape just to see, it's like, all right, if there was injuries in there, all right, how did they look when they played? And I factored that in as well. So it's 300 guys that I extensively scout during the season. I had about another 100 players between January and February that I watched them. And there's probably about 600 other players that I've watched at least a game of to get some general idea of what they are, who they are, what type of player they are. So that's a lot of players. And that's why I like to talk about the draft so much. That's where my focus is.
CC coming in here, wouldn't mind trading or cutting Kareem. Fangio always gets the best out of safeties, and there's some good ones in this class. Paris Ford. I love Paris Ford. My dude right now, because I don't necessarily like cutting Kareem or trading Kareem. I mean, yeah, they've got the team option. They can get rid of him. And Eric, I see you. I know where you're going here. Eric's playing with his pop figures because he sees the super chat from Malcolm Brown here. Anyways, guys, to get back onto the comment here, as far as safeties in the draft, Richie Grant, man. Richie Grant is my dude. UCF, I love him. He's a perfect scheme fit. He comes downhill so well. He fits exactly what that Kareem Jackson light role would be. And get him to bulk up a little bit, get him into an NFL strength and conditioning room. And guess what, dude? That kid is going to be a superstar in this defense. I'm telling you, it's going to be a superstar. Now, Eric, I see you playing around, because I know exactly where you're going here. Malcolm Brown jumping in here on Super Chat with a $5 donation. Thank you, Malcolm from Homer, Alaska. We appreciate you, buddy. Which Star Wars character are Elway, Fangio, and Lindsay? Goodell equals Darth Sidious. I appreciate that. Eric, go ahead.
I disagree and say Roger Goodell is Jabba the Hutt, but according to some guy on Twitter, I'm Jabba the Hutt. But anyways, to your question is, I remember, I can't remember who I was talking to about this. I think it was Nick at one point. It was about a year ago, and talking about how I wanted to do an article comparing different players and staff members of the Broncos to Star Wars characters. And my idea for John Elway was Boba Fett. And my reasoning for that is because everybody thinks he's a bad guy, but he's not exactly a bad guy. He's just doing what he's got to do, or what he thinks that needs to be done. So that's kind of how it is. I don't think that Elway's a terrible general manager. I don't think he's this super bad guy. He's just doing things that he thinks is the right way to go about doing things. Now, Vic Fangio, I think, is Zeb. which if you guys haven't watched the cartoon show Rebels, you guys won't get this. But Zeb is a big, obviously, kind of alien and kind of big and gruff and everything looking. But really, he's just kind of like a sweetheart and everything. And that's exactly what I see Fangio is. On the outside, he seems so rough and gruff and everything. But kind of inside, he just wants to do everything that he can to help out the team. And that's exactly what Zeb is. And then Lindsey, got to go with BB-8. Part of it is because of the size. Not going to lie. But it's also because that BB-8, he just kind of zooms around avoiding people. And when Lindsey can get the right looks out there, that's what he does.
That's very true. And it's really weird for me to break it down like this, because if you go back and you watch Philip Lindsay's rookie year and even last year, the way that he won was running in between the tackles. It was never a true stretch it out and kind of get him on the outside and make him run and let his vision kind of come in and his quickness and whatnot like that. But it seems like this year it's not actually working, and it would make a lot more sense for him to get out on the boundary. And I don't understand exactly why Pat Shurmur's not using him that way. It doesn't really make sense to me, but I understand exactly I understand what they're doing. The way that Philip Lindsay wins is because he's so small and he's so hard to see behind the line of scrimmage. But now as soon as that number pops up on the field, they're just stacking the box and they're attacking the A-gaps because that's where he wins. So it's so hard, and it pains me to say, like quite honestly, it makes so much sense, especially in this scheme. And it was kind of a prudent move by John Elway to go out and go. We all hated the contract, and we hated to see Melvin Gordon come in and Philip Lindsay not get paid. But when you see the multi-versatility of a Melvin Gordon as compared to a Philip Lindsay, it makes 100% perfect sense. And Melvin Gordon is proven that, you know what, that $8 million contract doesn't necessarily look so bad. He has been, without a question, the best Broncos running back on the field this year, and I don't think that you can debate that.
I think if you have a debate with that, not saying I am, is your starting point is the fumbles.
Yep.
That's your starting point.
Yep. No,
the issue with Lindsey is the type of back he is doesn't fit with the type of back he's built to be.
No.
He wants to be the between the tackles, not necessarily a bruiser, but tough between the tackles runner, and his size doesn't take that. I mean, this year we're seeing the injuries just kind of pile up on him because he's taking hits that he doesn't need to take, but he doesn't have the great speed to sit there and win on the outside. He's got great burst to sit there and get some big gains quickly, but not the speed to fully capitalize on it consistently. Now, we have a couple other super chats here. First one from WE with the $4.99 donation. Would Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from Notre Dame be a reach in the mid-rounds if we don't get Farley? Are you talking about mid-first round? Because he's a first-round pick.
He's going to be a first round.
Who are some coverage linebackers the Broncos can target? I actually had this question on Twitter. I did a Q&A the other day. And Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, I like him. I like what he offers quite a bit, but I think he's more of a traditional will linebacker, and that's just not what Denver – that just isn't within Denver's scheme, really. For coverage,
let me interject here really quick. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is actually very small, and based on what Vic Fangio wants him to do, he would be more suited to play in a safety role, but I don't think he's athletic enough to be able to do that. He's not big enough to play the thumper role that you need to in the will linebacker position, but he's also not fast enough to play he's a true tweener. He really is. And there's some teams that are going to find a way to use him, similar to Hassan Reddick, similar to Deion Buchanan, who we saw with the Arizona Cardinals for a long time. But if you're going to have him in Vic Fangio's scheme where he's going to play that inside linebacker role, I don't see that fit at all. I really don't.
No, I think that you can make him work with some adjustments next to Alexander Johnson, but it's not ideal.
No.
Now for Denver, for guys who they can get, I think that Chaz Surratt would be probably one of the best ones they can get. Joe Burrow Cox would be another good one. Those guys are probably more second rounders. I think that Garrett Wallow out of TCU, if they want a guy they can sit and develop a little bit and contribute on special teams, he'd be a guy probably day 3. I could see him going late day 2 because of the upside that he has is just so tremendous. He's a former safety that's converting over to linebacker. Mm-hmm. And his coverage is like he's playing. Still playing safety. With Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, is a lot of people sit there and they want to bring up Roquan Smith with him. But Roquan Smith, he played about 225, 230 at Georgia. And then in the NFL, he was willing to play between 230 and 235. and Owusu Karamora he plays closer to 220. And obviously he agrees to bulk up, but the question is, will he bulk up enough? And how much will that affect his ability to run and cover and all that stuff like that? Because right now, if an offensive lineman gets their hands on him in the run game, he's just basically completely taken out of the play. He's just a coverage guy at the moment.
I don't necessarily even know that he's playing closer to 220. I think he's closer to 210. Oh, really? Okay.
He's over 215.
Okay, I wasn't sure. He just looks slight of frame, and he's long as heck. And I like the ability of him to move, but he's not a mover like a safety, and he's not built like a linebacker. He's a true tweener in that aspect, and he needs to build up a lot more strength if he's not going to be able to turn and run with some guys. Brian Greenfield coming in here on a $5 super as well. Again, thank you, Brian, for joining us tonight. Maybe there we go. We can't hold our breath on Juwan James playing, and I frankly would be happy if James and Wilkinson never stepped on the field again. To the second point, I understand where you're coming from. I would love to see Juwan James come back and actually play healthy, because, as I said earlier, he's an elite right tackle, guys. Like, he's a top 5 right tackle in this league, not top
10.
Okay, I could see that. If nothing else, you have one of the best left tackles in football in Garrett Bowles, and yes, I'm going to pound my chest on that again and again and again. But still, you have quality bookends. Juwan James, if he comes back and plays healthy, it's a big boost. Now, I do understand the want and the need to upgrade the tackle position, especially because of if Juwan James does get hurt. And I saw a comment about DeMar Dotson and having pictures or something. I don't understand that. As far as a run blocker, he's not the high quality mover that you want him to be in this scheme, especially with the pin and pull that the Broncos have been running here lately, where you see the pulling guards and everything. But as far as if you're going to run a pin and pull to the right side, DeMar Dotson is doing a great job, because he's such a massive body, he's hard to move. And he's pinning down defensive ends. He's allowing Garrett Bowles and Dalton Reisner to pin off his backside and go kick out the linebackers and quarterbacks on the boundary. And they're running some counter trap looks. It looks great. It's probably the best running plays that we've seen from the Broncos going back to even the first Kansas City game. They really opened that up against the Miami Dolphins. DeMar Dotson, though, has been spectacular in pass protection. I don't think he's even given up a sack this year. He's like a handful of pressures, if that. He's been one of the best offensive linemen the Broncos have had this year, and nobody wants to talk about him in a positive light, and I don't understand that. He's a very well-likable guy. He came on Broncos Country Tonight a couple weeks ago and talked about the locker room and the difference of culture of being in Denver as compared to being in Tampa Bay, where he spent the first 10 years of his career. Like, that guy wants to be here, and you can hear it in his voice. He loves playing with Pat Shurmur. He loves playing with Drew Lock. He loves playing in this scheme because, as he said, it's, quote, the easiest scheme he's ever played in, because they don't ask him to do a whole lot. They don't ask him to go out and get out on screens. That's probably a big reason why they don't run screens to the right side, by the way, is because he's not an athletic freak like what you want with a Juwan James, who can actually get out and move and go blow up some stuff on the screen game. But as far as a fill-in, a guy that you're going to bring in late in training camp and have to get him up to speed and everything, I will honestly say this. Right now, based on what I've seen with DeMar Dotson, his play this year has been exponentially better than what the Broncos got out of Evan Mathis when they signed him back in 2015, and I mean that wholeheartedly.
I don't have much to add, really, outside of Juwan James, obviously, for obvious reasons, leaves a bad taste in Broncos fans' mouth. Only see him 63 snaps last year, then opting out this year, which I'm not going to fault him for opting out or anything. But when he is out on the field, he is a top 10 right tackle in the NFL. Denver decided to make him the highest paid one with the injury history, which I think was kind of silly. But that's a different kind of conversation. And I think that they're betting on him taking the year off, being able to get really good with his health, get back to full health. Because last year, and Bronco fans may not want to accept this, they tried rushing him back, and he wasn't ready for it. He has issues with his knees, and as somebody who has issues with your knees, if you feel like your knee's going to give out on you or your knee's not right, your knee's probably going to give out at you because there is something wrong with your knee. Like, I don't know how many times I've sat there and I've just gone to take a step, my knee felt off, and then my knee just gave out on me the next step I took. Just things like that. Happens a lot. I work with people work with somebody who has bad knees, and it's the same thing with him. It's actually one conversation I had. He used to play with the Oregon Ducks and was a defensive back for them. And funny story, he actually played with Mike Nolan, the Dallas Cowboys, on their coaching staff, and Mike Nolan's nickname was Cupcakes by them. So the whole reason for that, real quick, is Mike Nolan, whenever they'd have to do certain drills and everything like that, like any contact drills, Mike Nolan would basically lay on the ground in a fetal position. But anyways, so I understand why Juwan James opted out and everything. I understand that the issues with him. I understand not wanting him to go and wanting to play when his knee's not right. And I think that it wasn't right for Denver to try to rush him back when he wasn't ready. Which a lot of Bronco fans, when Trent Williams sat there and aired his grievances about Washington and them trying to sit there and rush him back for it, they were all up in arms about Washington doing that. But I guess it's okay because it's the Broncos with Juwan James, but whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we'll get some games out of him. How many remains to be seen. I hope for a full 16, but honestly, I would bet start the over under at 8. And the thing is that because of that, you've got to sit there and try to you've got to try to find a swing tackle option, because Wilkinson, I don't think, is it. They're going to see if he can be this year or in these final 3 games, and it's just nuts to me.
I would much rather see Calvin Anderson right now than I would see Elijah Wilkinson, because Calvin Anderson played a hell of a game at left tackle against the Carolina Panthers. And he struggled against the Raiders, I think is where he got to start against the right tackle position.
Wherever he started at right tackle, yeah, it wasn't pretty.
It wasn't pretty, but I would much rather, if you're going to do an evaluation, you kind of already understand what you've got with Elijah Wilkinson, and them thinking that he can play that, the tackle position is just so mind-boggling to me. At least Calvin Anderson has that versatility if you do lose a guy to come in and be able to play athletically enough to play on the boundary, whereas Elijah Wilkinson doesn't have that. Lawrence Rivera coming in here, and
real quick with Wilkinson, are we sure we've given him enough time to sit there and show that he can be the right tackle?
Oh man, I love the patience argument, because there's
I love
so
you,
much.
Chad. I really do. I love you.
I love all of Broncos country that want to try to throw that in my face and then throw the Garrett Bowles argument and throw the whatever you want to. Patience is earned, guys. Patience is earned. And Lawrence, we're going to come back to this here in just a second. Patience is earned much, much more than people want to admit. You have to be able to show the growth, guys. And with
he shouldn't be a right tackle.
Well, not even Wilkinson. Go back to Drew Lock. Go back to Garrett Bowles. Go back to Draymond Jones. Go back to – it doesn't matter. If you want to have patience with a player, they have to be able to show growth from a certain game to a certain game, from a year to a year. And we're not seeing that with certain players. Garrett Bowles was never a bad tackle. He was never considered the worst worst left tackle. Sorry, that was a Freudian slip, by the way. He was never considered the worst left tackle in the NFL. He just had holding issues. He was always considered at least a middle of the road and showed growth. Draymond Jones has never been considered the worst defensive lineman that has played in the NFL. He's always shown growth, and showing growth is the big thing. You can be patient with players that are showing you growth. Elijah Wilkinson and Drew Lock have not shown growth. We're seeing a little bit of growth with Drew Lock right now, and that's why we are changing our narrative just a little bit. It's so frustrating.
No. We're not changing our narrative about it. I really hate that term. That's a pet peeve of mine.
It is.
It's not a narrative. It was just our opinions on it, and he's done things to make a like with, since it's holiday time, how the Grinch stole Christmas. Drew Lock's done enough to help make our hearts grow a little bit bigger. We got a couple before because since we're not going to be here next week, we got to throw a little bit about the Chargers game as well. Lawrence Rivera comes in with a $5 donation. Thank you so much for the insight. I'll be joining the podcast more. He's a kicker that got kicked out, but check it out. He's worth the look. I put money on it.
That would be
he said somewhere else that he's on YouTube and everything like that. Kickers are hard for me, like especially guys who do stuff on YouTube and everything like that. Same with quarterbacks, like people who do that trick stuff on YouTube. Like, hey, that's nice and everything, but can you consistently hit 50-yard field goals, stuff like that? I'll check him out, see if he has stuff like that, but not promising anything. It really depends on it.
it's really cool to see Marquette King kick 50-yard punts and make it into a basketball hoop on YouTube. But when you check out of games regularly because you don't want to be in a certain location and then be the worst punter in the league because you had to play in Denver, kind of hard for me to take any credence in that. But okay.
And Steammeat says, I have a question. Let's say Stars aligned on here on out and win a Super Bowl. Does James get a ring? I don't think he does. Since his contract doesn't toll, I don't think he gets a ring from the Broncos. I'm not 100% sure on that. I think I saw somebody say about that, how players who opted out, that if their team wins the Super Bowl, they won't get a ring. But again, not 100% certain on that.
Yeah, that's
then just because I got to. Trickel, that's a low blow at me. You're a scout, bro. You just know just as much as me. It takes more time for a quarterback. Well, you're not wrong. There are projects on the offensive line that take time to develop and everything like that. And again, the whole thing is you got to show that development. I think that you're missing that part of it, is that you got to show those steps forward. And up until the Miami game, Drew Lock wasn't. He was actually taking those steps back. Now, the Bills game tomorrow.
Yeah, let's do this. I actually have permission from Chad to run a little bit long so we can get some Charger stuff in here as well, since we're not doing a show next week. As far as the Bills go, Eric, to me, this game is very winnable for the Broncos, but it also is going to come down to two key aspects. First things first is obviously does Drew Lock show and continue to show the growth and continue to play within the scheme. But secondly, what does the Broncos defense look like, especially in the secondary, with the most targeted wide receiver in the NFL coming into town against a secondary that is down 5 guys over the last 2 weeks? We're down to Michael Ojemudia. We're down to Will Parks and Nate Hairston, I believe, is the other third cornerback listed. Elijah Holder has some time. Kareem Jackson could maybe play some cornerback as well, but that brings in Trey Marshall or PJ Locke. What do you think is the biggest key to the Broncos being able to walk away from Mile High Stadium with a win tomorrow?
Capitalize on the turnover-worthy plays from Josh Allen.
He leads the NFL.
And Drew Lock not turning the ball over himself.
Yep.
Like that's what it is. They got to play a clean game offensively, and the defense has to force turnovers. And I'm very concerned because the Broncos secondary is about as healthy as a rotten apple at this moment, with as many corners they have on injured reserve. The matchups just aren't great. No. I'm not gonna lie. Even outside of Stephon Diggs, the other receivers matching up against the quarters, it's just not great for the Broncos. And Josh Allen, he has the right traits to sit there and attack their weaknesses. So I think there's a chance for the Bills, for the Broncos, but it's going to be a rough shot. I don't think they pull it away, but I think we're going to see a lot of promising stuff from not just Drew Lock, but a lot of the Broncos.
No, I think the offense is going to take another step forward here. It really is. Like I said, it's going to depend on Drew Lock. And something that I wanted to kind of touch on here was something that I heard. And if you go back and look at some of the tape here as well, Josh Allen has taken a major step forward in his ability to diagnose coverages, and especially in zone coverage. And that's where the Bills are really picking people apart, because Cole Beasley is a big part of this, and Stephon Diggs as well. But Cole Beasley is the guy that I really want you guys to focus on in the Bills passing attack, because he understands zone coverage so well, and he knows that when he needs to carry a route over the front of a linebacker over the middle of the field, or sit down in front.
Allen's Welker.
Yeah, he really is. He really is a Wes Welker kind of a player, because he understands coverages so well. And the thing that you really have wanted to see with Drew Lock, and the comparison that you're getting with this whole Josh Allen comparison over his first 15 games or whatever, like, the thing is, Josh Allen has shown the incremental growth, and now this year he's understanding what's happening in front of him on the defensive side of the field, and he's seeing these zones that are opening up. And there are times where you'll see him and he'll stand, and there'll be bodies flying all around him, and he'll stand flat-footed and just scan his eyes and find Cole Beasley sitting down in a zone. And he is picking apart zone coverage, and he understands the timing of that Brian Daboll offense. And yeah, the patience, the consistency that Josh Allen has had with this scheme has grown immensely. But they've also added so many different aspects to this offense. The running game is not necessarily clicking for them right now, and I'm not exactly sure why. But they gave them some weapons to throw the football to. They added a John Brown. They added a Stephon Diggs. Cole Beasley's there now. They have Dawson Knox who's stepping up at the tight end position, and they're attacking zone coverage so well. And Josh Allen, with his eyes, is deciphering that and picking defenses apart. And with the Broncos not being able to line up man-to-man with a Stephon Diggs, they're going to rely a lot on Michael Ojemudia. I think that's the matchup to watch here, is Stephon Diggs versus Michael Ojemudia, and that is advantage Buffalo Bills. And to me, guys, I don't know that the Broncos have the horses. They can play that bend but don't break. But when it gets into the red zone, Josh Allen brings another aspect that nobody necessarily wants to talk about over the first 2 years of his career. The fact that, first off, he's not turnover prone in the red zone. He takes care of the football, and he also adds the ability of punching the football in the end zone with his legs. And if the Broncos can bend but not break and get into the red zone, it doesn't matter. Josh Allen's going to do something, and he's going to score touchdowns. And that's what he does. 0 turnovers in the red zone over 3 seasons. Drew Lock, by the way, has 4 this year.
Yeah. And a couple questions before we get to the Chargers game, before we get out of here. Eric just said he wants to see development. That's all I've ever said, but apparently that means I hate Drew Lock and he should be benched right away. It's always been he has the rest of the season to show the development needed to buy more time. And then last comment is Josh Allen 52% first year, 57 second year. Lock is 57%. Completion percentage isn't everything. First of all, stats aren't everything. Stats aren't even a large portion when you're trying to see development of a player. I think you're missing that part. It's about the development of a player. Josh Allen, between his first year and his second year, he showed the progress you want to see as a quarterback. Drew Lock didn't, not until the Miami game.
Hold on.
You got to show that development to get more time. I think that's the part you're missing. To get more time, you've got to show that development. Also, helping Josh Allen was the threat he was with his legs. Same thing with John Elway too, by the way.
I was actually going to bring that into this discussion because everybody wants to throw the passing statistics side by side. Josh Allen ran for almost 700 yards and like 8 touchdowns, as well as his passing yards. He was still effective within the Bills' offense and what they wanted him to do. That effectiveness also allowed him some more patience because they could still figure out ways to move the ball with him and use his legs and continue. I don't understand how there's so much more context and so much more nuance to all of these arguments. And if you want to,
no context to them,
stats
have no context to them.
No, exactly. Like you have to add so much more context to all of these arguments. There's also the fact that Josh Allen has played with Isaiah McKenzie and Robert Foster. Do you even remember who Robert Foster is? Like, have you heard that name in the last 5 years? Zay Jones is a backup wide receiver for the Oakland Raiders right now. Like, those were his top 3 wide receivers in the Buffalo Bills in his rookie season. Drew Lock has way more talent to work with. Like, he's not effective. Like, come on, guys. Let's be real here.
All right, let's get to the Chargers game before I have an aneurysm and as George Marva.
Me too.
I start screaming development because apparently I can't understand that. One player showed development, the other player showed regression, whatever. So the Chargers game, before we get out of here, obviously, as I said earlier, we're going to not be here. We're not going to be here next week. It's going to be Christmas Day for us. We'll be spending time with our family and everything like that. And so we do want to wish those of you that celebrate Christmas a Merry Christmas. Those of you that don't celebrate Christmas, then happy holidays to you. Happy whatever it happens to be that you celebrate. Happy Hanukkah for those of you who are Jewish, and happy Kwanzaa, happy Festivus, all that stuff to you guys. And I hope that you all have a wonderful day next week, even if it's just a normal Friday to you and you don't celebrate anything. Just whatever the case may be, hope you have a wonderful day. Now, for the Chargers game, this is a game that actually I can see Denver losing, and it's more so because of Justin Herbert. But the thing is will they be able to win because of Anthony Lynn holding them back? That's the big question to me. Is I think that it was always a game of it was always one of those games that I thought that Denver could win. And once we got to this about the Miami game, it was always one game that I thought Denver could win. Was this Chargers game? They've had so many issues on defense. They start off strong and then they just ease up so much that they don't that they just fall apart and everything like that. So I think that this will. I think this is one that Denver actually ends up walking out of with a win. And real quick, Janice comes and says Carolina game wasn't progression. You obviously missed everything else that was said about that. I was talking about before that. I was leading up. Actually, Miami game is when he started to show the progression. It was talking about everything before that Drew Lock was showing the signs of regression, and really about where he's at now is where he was at to the end of last year, because of the regression he showed to start the season. So yeah, you just missed everything else that was said prior to that.
Yeah, go back and check that out, and it's again, and I kind of pointed this out earlier. Go back and check this out. It's more of an outlier than anything. And yeah, there was progression, and he showed the ability of actually playing within the scheme. It's such an outlier game that you got to kind of weigh the bad within the good, and also weigh the entire sample size. It is a full evaluation here, guys. And I'm not looking at a game by game basis. I'm looking at a start from and then finish at. Like so, all of everything in between is
Chargers game.
So people in LA have to listen to podcasts about whether Herbert is the man. There should be no question about that. As far as
I think there should be. I think that he still has to show. I think he has to show the development over the second year.
Well, yeah,
he's on the right trend, just as Locke was last year.
Most certainly. I would also argue that. Considering he's about to shatter the rookie touchdown passing record and with not a full season worth of starting, to me, Justin Herbert is showing the trends and also the consistency in his decision making. He's also showing the ability to make plays by himself, play with also within the scheme. He's also doing the necessary things of a franchise quarterback. It didn't even take 4 starts, and you already saw that there was progression with him. There are some times where it's like head-scratching rookie moments, and yeah, he's a rookie, and he's only got 13 starts under his belt total. I mean, really, if you look at it side by side as far as starts go, Locke and Herbert are really side by side in terms of the number of starts that they have. But I don't think that there's any question that Justin Herbert has all of the tools and has made all of the necessary steps to continue that progression going into next year. Maybe there's going to be some adjustments from other defensive coordinators, but when you have 13 starts in the NFL, teams are adjusting to you as it is already. Drew Lock we still have these questions. And when you watch Justin Herbert play compared to Drew Lock, there's not a lot of really true comparisons to, well, Justin Herbert's the guy. Drew Lock doesn't necessarily look like it. We still have these questions. As far as the Broncos versus the Chargers, it really comes down to who plays the better game at the quarterback position, because I think that the Broncos can do whatever they need to do and slow down this Chargers attack like they did in the second half of the last game earlier this season. But what do the Broncos do with a defense that's actually getting healthier? Like they're recovering some guys back in the secondary. Derwin James isn't going to be there, obviously. They still have all their horses on the offensive side of the football. The Broncos are getting weaker on the defense, especially in the secondary. Justin Herbert still continues to play a high quality game, distribute the ball to like 8 or 9 different targets last night against the Las Vegas Raiders. That's the big key, and it's going to be the big key for me for the rest of the season is how does this Broncos secondary hold up against the quarterbacks they're about to go face? And honestly, against Herbert, I don't like their chances. Against Marcus Mariota in Week 17, sure, give me that matchup. I like that.
And then my thing is with the Chargers game, to me it's going to be who can close out the game.
Yeah,
not going to be how you start; it's going to be how you finish, which is often the case with that. Yeah. And then Richie Rich is in the comment section real quick. I just want to highlight this. He's trying to give me an aneurysm because he made a comment about Drew Lock not showing the progress and everything that he needs to be. He is. I mean, there's still times where he locks onto one receiver or progressing through his reads was the actual comment. He is. He's actually starting to do that a little bit more. It's why he's finding those running backs and those tight ends underneath and everything, and not just reading that first one. But he also said, how many 3-yard games does Lock have? Man, you're going to give me an aneurysm with a comment like that, man. It's not about, in the end, it's really not about how many passing yards a quarterback has. It's how they get them, where they come. I mean, and it's how the end game ends. I mean, Patrick Mahomes in that first game against the Broncos, he only had over 100 yards. He didn't break 200, right? If I remember right, he didn't break 200.
No, against the Kansas City.
I don't think he broke 150.
151, I believe, is what it was, with 2 interceptions, by the way, and no touchdowns.
Yeah, and in that first game, like, so it's not about the stats and everything like that. And
all right, I got a super sticker from Muhammad. Will you pull that up for me, John? Go ahead, Eric.
And he says that I'm not sure certain Lock's short passes were not his first read. They weren't. They really just sat there, and he started off on typically an outside receiver. They weren't there. He came off to a second read, third read. He's making proper progressions. Still times he doesn't, but he's getting better about it.
That's absolutely true, and that's one of the biggest reasons why. Again,
it's like me giving a thumbs up.
Yeah, Muhammad Badri, thank you for the thumbs up, man. We appreciate that.
Just without gray hair,
right? So Eric's been super upset about all that here lately. I pulled a gray hair for my beard. My 30th birthday was last Saturday, and I had a gray hair in my beard, and yeah, it was not good for me. I was actually kind of tore up about that, and Eric's really upset that I was upset about my one gray hair.
I don't know if you guys can tell, my hair's like 50% gray. I've been going gray since before I was 18. Anyways, we do got to get out of here. We hope everybody has a wonderful day next week, if you celebrate the holiday or not. We hope you guys have a wonderful New Year's Eve. I hope you guys are safe. Stay safe. I hope you guys don't drink and drive. And I hope you guys bring in the new year with a bang, because I am so ready to say goodbye to 2020. Yes.
It's 2020, 24 hours to go. I want to be cremated is the actual way that song's supposed to be sang. But no, I'm really upset that you didn't laugh about that. Anyways, guys, we're going to get out of here. Thank you all for joining the Dove Valley Deep Divers. You guys can follow me at Sanderson, MHHN, for Eric at Erick Trickel. Also, while you're at it, follow at DVDD_pod, because that's the easiest way to keep up with what's going on with the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. Also, follow at Mile High Huddle, breaking news and analysis, opinion articles, film breakdowns, anything from your favorite Mile High Huddle personalities, including Nick Kendall and Carl Dumler, Chad and Zach. Bawana, I'm telling you, man, you've got to get something going here. You've got to get something going. Also, guys, if you're financially able to do so, it's holiday season. Go find something for one of your loved ones. Spoil yourself a little bit. Get yourself a hat. Get yourself a T-shirt. HuddleUpPod.com. That's the merch tent. That's the easiest way to help. Well, one of the best ways to help support the show. Facebook supporters, click that blue Become a Supporter button. If you're not in a financial position or unwilling to do so, whatever. That's your prerogative. You do what you do. At least do these 3 simple things. Subscribe wherever you're watching, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to Mile High Huddle. Like every video, every podcast. Doesn't matter if it's a podcast episode, if it's one of Eric's breakdowns on the Rookie of the Week to watch. Like that video. Share it to as many Broncos fans as you possibly can, because as many Broncos fans as we can get in front of helps us grow the show exponentially. Also, guys, don't forget sportsbetting.com/Mile High Huddle. Get in on that risk-free week of sports betting up to $1,000. And before we get out of here, Eric, before we say goodbye to you guys till at least the New Year holiday, do you have any last words?
Yeah, go Denver Locks, apparently.
Go Denver Locks, apparently. That's
I'm kidding about that. I hope Denver Broncos win. It'd be nice to see them beat Buffalo. And yeah, we'll just see you all in 2 weeks. And nearing my next birthday, too. Gonna get another year older and great.
It's not the worst thing ever, man. I'm telling you.
I'm gonna mute you. I'm gonna mute you when you're talking.
Unfortunately, he actually has that power. But anyways, guys, for real though, a very Merry Christmas to everybody out there. And happy holidays to anybody that doesn't celebrate the season. Whatever you may have, you all stay safe and take care over the rest of this weekend. We will see you guys on New Year's, I would imagine. Eric, I think we're good to go on New Year's Day. If not, yeah, I believe so. Anyway, stay safe, take care, have a great rest of your weekend. Go Broncos. Hopefully we beat the Bills. We'll see you guys here directly.
Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.